We Are the Weather Makers is a novel written to inform readers, especially young adults, about the dangers the world, the environment, and human beings face as a result of climate change. This novel was written by Tim Flannery, who is not only a writer, but a scientist and explorer. Besides this novel, Tim has written a number of novels to inform readers about environmental dangers we face today. The main goal of this book was to explain how we are changing the climate and what it means for life on Earth. Climate change, global warming, greenhouse gases, and CO2. These words are often used interchangeably, but what do each of them really mean when it comes to our planet? CO2 is a colorless, odorless gas that plays a big part in sustaining life on our planet by regulating its temperature. It is put into the atmosphere in many different ways, such as burning fossil fuels, emissions, human and animal exhale, and decomposition of the dead. Once put into the atmosphere, CO2 gas lasts up to 1 century before it starts to break down. CO2 is one of the major gases that make up greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases capture heat from the sun near the Earth's surface. As CO2 and other greenhouse gases are put into the atmosphere, greenhouse gases build up, trapping more heat. This causes global warming, which leads to climate change, as the heat affects the natural environment, melting snow, weather, etc. As global temperatures rise, species are forced to move farther north in order to survive, but human development is often in the way, causing many species to become trapped and eventually extinct, as they cannot evolve quickly enough. This often has disastrous effects on the food chain. A prime example of this is the Arctic Ocean. As sea ice melts, it kills off microplankton, which is the only source of food for krill. Krill sustains major populations such as penguins, seals, and whales. Every year, the Arctic Ocean population goes down 40% due to lack of food. Other environments that are affected in similar ways include coral reefs, rainforests, the tundra, grasslands, and many others. As ice melts, it increases precipitation. Unfortunately, this excess rain is not distributed evenly, and it can lead to extreme weather such as hurricanes, tsunamis, ice storms, extreme heat, and droughts. Today, scientists use computer-simulated models to test and make predictions on how different factors affect our atmosphere and climate. Using these models, scientists have predicted as CO2 levels continue to rise, by the year 2050, the climate will be completely altered, as the world's temperature will be raised by 5 degrees Celsius. The only way to prevent this is to decrease CO2 emissions and remove the CO2 from the atmosphere. CO2 is removed naturally as it is absorbed into growing forests, ocean, and terrain sinks. Unfortunately, they are quickly filling up, and will no longer be able to absorb the carbon they once did. Scientists have also predicted 3 tipping points that will also send the climate spiraling downwards. The Gulf Stream is the fastest ocean current in the world. As sea ice melts into the stream, it will begin to slow, which will affect the stream's ability to cool northern countries. The heat will create droughts, which will affect countries' ability to produce food to feed their populations. It will also create extreme weather conditions in these countries, affecting their health and safety of their populations. The Gulf Stream also oxygenates the deeper waters of the Arctic Ocean. If it slows, 50% of the marine population will become extinct, while 20% in the oceans around the world will also decrease. Cathrates are crystals of ice with methane gas trapped inside. They can be found within the seabed of the Arctic Ocean. This is because the cold water keeps the crystals in a solid and stable state. If the temperature of the water was to heat, 42 trillion cubic meters of methane would be released into the ocean and the atmosphere. This would kill billions of species, as they could not survive in such a methane-rich environment. This could one day be our reality, as ocean temperatures continue to rise due to global warming. As CO2 levels rise, the plants in the Amazon try to absorb as much as they can through their stromatas. As the stromata is open for longer periods of time, the plants lose more and more water they have stored. Combined with the droughts, scientists have predicted the plants of the rainforest will start to die, and by the year 2040, the rainforest will be gone forever. To add on to this, great amounts of CO2 will be added into the atmosphere as the species of the Amazon decompose. The ozone is essential to life on Earth, as it acts as a protective layer, shielding the Earth from 95% of the UV radiation emitted from the sun. UV radiation breaks down DNA and chemical bonds within cells, as well as it can cause damage to the immune system, the eyes, and can cause cancer. In the year 1928, scientists created CFCs and HFCs. These chemicals are extremely damaging to the ozone because for every one molecule, 100,000 ozone molecules are destroyed. CFCs and HFCs are the main reason for the hole in the ozone that is letting UV radiation into the atmosphere. In 1987, the Montreal Protocol was created to try and get countries to phase out the production of CFCs and HFCs. This protocol was the first step in trying to fix and limit the damage done to the atmosphere, although not every country followed it. After the Montreal Protocol, the only international treaty to combat climate change was created, Kyoto. The goal of Kyoto was to reduce the world's CO2 emissions by 5%. This would be done by creating a CO2 budget that every country had to follow. Industries could buy carbon dollars in order to increase the amount of CO2 they could release each year. Not every country agreed to Kyoto, for economic and political reasons, and almost all of those who did agree did not reach their goal set out by Kyoto. Kyoto did not go as planned because no authority enforced the rules, so countries could continue to pollute without any consequences. The only way to fix many of these environmental problems is to reduce or eliminate CO2 emissions in aspects of our daily lives. The main focus is to find environmentally friendly resources to replace fossil fuels. This includes wind energy, solar power, geothermal energy, and hydroelectric. Electric and hydrogen-powered cars are great ways of reducing CO2 in our daily lives. We can't just wait for the government to deal with climate change. Individuals can join green movements, do their part to clean up their local park, reduce their carbon footprint, among other things. Always remember to be the change you want to see in the world. Without certain plant and animal species, humans will not be able to survive, as they cannot get the food and shelter they need. If global warming, human development, loss of biodiversity, and/or habitat loss occurs, as it is predicted to occur, humans will lose the resources they need to survive. If the ozone were to be lost due to the production of harmful chemicals, the entire human population would die instantly with the direct contact of UV radiation. Finally, with an increased amount of extreme weather due to climate change, the human population safety is at risk. The extreme weather will occur in places that are not used to certain types of weather, making it even more dangerous. While the human population continues to grow, one thing is for sure. If we do not address the issues the world faces today, there may not be anybody left to deal with them in the future.